It is 6:18 on November 9th, 2022. We'll start the PAB meeting. Before I get started, I'd like to say that my name is Paul Rivers, and I will be sitting in as acting chair. Ms. Nellie Hunt, who had a family emergency, who had to leave the area, and I will be conducting our meeting for tonight. I would like to start with a roll call. Again, my name is Paul Rivers.
Brenda McCrystal.
Good afternoon, Ricardo Morales.
From Charity.
Arnetta Wire.
And we have online.
Jim Gormley here.
Thank you. Our next goal was our chairperson, Ms. Nellie Hunt, designated Paul Rivers to be her acting be on her administrative charging committee, to be her representative for the administrative charging committee. I appreciate the honors. I'll do my best to do a good job for everybody.
Could you repeat that, Paul, please?
Ms. Nellie Hunt, our chairperson, designated Paul Rivers for the administrative charging committee to be her designee.
Okay.
Thank you. Get it right the second time.
Well, quick
All right.
question on that. Is that when she's not available, or will you be picking that up on a regular, I know they don't meet regularly, but up on a consistent basis?
What are we talking about? Are we talking about the ACC, or are we talking about what I'm doing right now?
No, not the ACC I was talking about. I think you just mentioned that you will be the designee of Nellie on the ACC. My question is that when she's not available, or will you be doing it on a regular basis?
I believe we're going to alternate that. When she's not available, I will do it. When I'm not available, she will do it.
Got it.
Or if we're talking about ACC, I think she wants you to be her standing designee, was my understanding.
I'm stand corrected. I'm her standing designee.
And by standing, that means on a regular basis, Paul will be acting as on the ACC.
That's my.
What does standing mean, Sega?
No, Jim. My understanding was that our chair is going to be the person from this group in the ACC. If she's not available for some reason and needs a stand-in, then Paul Rivers will take over for the extent of whatever that case is. Once that case is over, Ms. Nellie Hunt will go back to be the primary on the ACC board.
Correct.
At least that's my understanding. And that's not your understanding.
No, just to make the record clear. So under the public safety article, the chairperson is either the chairperson or a designee of the chairperson will be a sitting member of the ACC. My understanding from Ms. Hutt is that he will be Mr. Rivers will be her standing designee on the ACC. She's going to delegate that to him. Not when she's unavailable. I believe he's the standing member of the ACC as her designee.
Well, we have to clear it up.
I mean, that's the conversation she and I had, so.
We'll figure it out when she comes back. I don't want to belabor that message right now because we have other things that we need to cover. So when she's back, she can clear the air on what my position will be on the ACC. Okay, I hope that clears up everything. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting on the 18th of October. Wait till you guys look it over, make a decision.
I wasn't present.
I mean, I can second it.
So
Yeah, I can second it.
You, okay, so have second, all in favor?
There's some.
Stand by.
some,
Grammatical errors.
Yeah,
Any grammatical errors, can we address that offline if there's a grammatical error?
that's fine.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So we have to do an individual roll
Okay,
call.
I'm
So
sorry.
it could be, it can't just be an aye. So it can,
Okay,
Kiana, can you do a roll call? Mr. Rivers' motion to approve the minutes. He got a second from
Mr. Morales.
Mr. Morales, and then.
Mr. Charity,
yes.
Mr. Morales,
Yes.
Ms. Brenda,
Abstain.
Because you
Mr. Rivers,
yes.
Ms. Wire. Yes. Mr. Gormley,
Yes.
Thank you.
It's gone over, but just for clarification, is approved pending whatever, edits come to the, you know.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna clarify. I think the motion was to approve the minutes substantively, so everyone agrees with the substance of the minutes. But, grammatical edits will be sent individually to your executive secretary, Kiana, correct?
Here.
It doesn't change the fact, no.
Oh, it doesn't. It's just a couple minutes. Okay, we good? Everybody's good? Okay, we're gonna move on to the staff reports. Ms. Kinsley?
Okay, so number one, the NPFCC updates, we have not received a response to the letter that was sent in September. However, I have been corresponding with staff on the training dates and locations for the administrative charter committee. Number two, ACC members have all been notified regarding their selection, and I'm working with them on their availability for training in late January or early February of next year. The draft ACC legislation, which you all will find in the packet. The draft was sent and given comments and revisions will be taken and voted upon by the board. And then I'll let, Michelle and John speak on that once I finish this. The PAB complaint update, we have had no new complaints as of November 8th. The draft annual report, that's also included in the packet that will be discussed for consideration and comments. And then number 6 was a recent inquiry. The board received a request from a University of Maryland, Baltimore County student for an interview with the board to prepare for a paper that she is writing discussing police accountability. I mentioned I would notify the board today, and I'm awaiting direction from the chair on how to proceed.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
I just have a question about the timing of the training for the members of the ACC. How did you all get to those dates, late January, early February? Is that what is that what's being offered?
Yeah, a survey was sent out for 2 separate dates, and those were the responses that I got there, were for those 2 dates.
Okay. And can I guess can they act before they receive the training if necessary?
You have to go through the training in order to serve on the committee.
Okay, I'm just wondering, why is it like 90 days out? I don't know if that will be
Those were the
normal.
dates that were provided by the training commission.
Oh, okay.
So the only
Okay.
one that they had like early, which was in December, and I think
Yep.
someone else had already took that week by the time I reached out to the people once I reached out to the people that were picked.
Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, just,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Go
please.
ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, it's just a quick question on that, and you know, one hopes we won't be faced with this, but were a complaint to be received and the investigation completed and sent in for ACC review before our ACC members have been trained, I wonder how we'd handle that, I guess would be my question. If in fact they can't act as ACC members until that time, or you know, given obviously that it's a week's training, we obviously have to have it scheduled at during their availability. But could it create a potential problem that there may be a need for a review and they're not qualified yet?
Yeah, we can
Michelle.
see that. Yeah, so, okay, so Mr. Gormley, we've sort of contemplated that issue from the standpoint of timing. And as far as an investigation process would occur, so even if let's say a complaint was received by today, for example, it usually takes between 60 and 90 days for the investigation process to come through. So you're still in line, even if so we're looking at if the board is trained in that January timeframe, that they could have a first meeting in February. As you see, the law is the fact that they'll have to meet monthly once they do start meeting. So they will have a regular date set. So we will let the board know as we get everyone. That's why we're trying to get people trained as soon as possible. If there is from the sheriff's standpoint, if there is a complaint that applies to the sheriff's department, because for the police department, they would still not apply under the ACC. So
Well, for lieutenant. and
for
above.
lieutenant above, only for the police department, right? But so the timeline, is, in some ways, it does work for, the potential of a complaint, if that makes sense. I just wanted to kind of provide that.
That's very helpful. You see, I think that means that you see nothing in the pipeline that's going to hit that would create a timing issue for the ACC.
Correct. That's what we're seeing right at this moment.
Good. So my concern would be, would not mature at that point. So that's great. Yeah. Okay.
And then I do have one other question. Can you just jog my memory as to the letter that was sent in September? What were you asking for in that letter?
For the training to either be virtual or to be, some classes be on the weekends.
Oh, okay.
More flexibility.
More flexibility.
Yeah, more flexible.
And foundation.
Which the board asked for. Do you mind if we mention the issue in regards to the legislation just quickly?
That's fine.
So John and I are here because of the legislation that you've been sent a copy of it. There may be some small tweaks that might be made by legal, but we just wanted to make sure that you had the substantive amount of the way the bill looks, and that will be presented, we believe, in January.
So the earliest we could present it would be at the end of December for consideration in January. And either if we don't have, that's not enough time, we can submit it in January for February consideration.
So your comments are needed by next month, by your meeting in December. But we wanted to give you some time to look at it before the holidays, because I'm sure that you want to read this over Thanksgiving and make lots of comments for us. But it's been provided to you at this point, so you can at least see it in the legislative format. Okay?
Thank
And we're here for any questions.
So the comments are needed before our next meeting or?
At the next, you can have them at the next meeting for us. That's
We'll
fine.
be on the agenda for the next meeting for the board is.
But we wanted to give you more time than asked me for tonight to give us comments, so we wanted to just let you know that's the extended time. Thank you.
So
That's it.
so the ACC legislation discussion.
We already, I mean,
They did
we don't have to discuss that now.
And so that's the discussion, so if you,
Yeah.
because you don't have it, you don't have to necessarily, you just got it, we didn't want to, necessarily take your time. But unless you have some other substantive questions about the AC's legislation and what it covers, we're here to answer those questions.
Does anybody have any questions they want to direct to Michelle or?
Does Jim have it on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I received an email of it. Yep.
Do you have any questions at this moment that you want to ask while we have them available? Or can it wait till next meeting? Or do you want to just wait till next meeting when you had a chance to digest what they sent you? Jim?
Oh, I'm sorry. I took a quick look at the regs. I'd previously provided some comments, and I think I'd circulated those at one of our prior meetings. And so some of those comments still pertain. I'm more than happy. I think that this is something we can certainly deal with at the next meeting when I've had more chance to digest it, and we all have, I think. Yeah.
Outstanding. Does anybody else have anything they want to touch on this before we move on to the next? Thank you. All right, the draft annual report discussion. All right,
And look at that and then provide comments.
we've all been provided with the draft. I see that there are a lot of spaces in here. We can add stuff if we need to. Some individuals have added some things. I also noticed that, we need to provide bios of ourselves to put into this nicely prepared, formatted forms. But I haven't had a chance to digest it myself. So if anybody has any comments that they would like to make on this, please feel free.
I think it's a good first draft. Tiana, thank you so much. And I'm assuming you incorporated lots of Jim's, whatever he submitted to you. I'm sure he submitted
Yes.
something. The only thing I have off the top of my head is that we need to have some consistency relative to how we refer to the board.
Okay,
Sometimes you use a lowercase b,
and then
and
sometimes.
sometimes it should be a capital B. Just be consistent with that. And did Madam Chair, did she provide her comments relative to the
No,
letter yet?
not yet.
Okay. Okay. But I think it's overall a good format. Do you intend though to have these boxes around the bios?
Yeah. Why you don't?
Actually, that's for we'll have our graphics department. We'll do some reformatting. We just wanted to make sure that you had some
Okay.
kind of an idea. So the actual format will be reformatted by our graphics department.
Okay.
And so more graphics will be in there. So they're all different sizes right now because we're trying to anticipate how long your bios are going to be.
Right.
And the graphic artist will actually help us to refine it. And some of the graphics actually may look different and some of the headings will look different because we'll use a format that's consistent. We just wanted to kind of show you, this is what it can look like, but it'll probably be it'll be a lot slicker because our graphics department will be able to put that together for us.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent, thank you.
Mhm.
Ms. Ware, outside of the chair's letter, did you see a place where the board was lowercase? 'Cause I thought I reviewed those.
Now, I looked at it, the one that was sent to me in the, via email.
Oh, yeah, I
So
changed.
maybe you updated it. It's been updated
I
since then.
don't think so, but
But we'll make sure that that's a consistent.
I know on the chair's letter, we didn't touch that because that's still a draft sheet.
We're still drafting it, yeah. But we will.
We'll review it.
We'll get it, we'll have it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Paul, I wonder if I could have an opportunity to just mention a few things on the draft report.
Sure, floor recognizes.
Thank you. I had provided for consideration, I think before the last meeting, a draft outline. Kiana presented a draft outline, and Kiana and I collaborated in then producing an outline that included, that sort of harmonized or included both our comments. This draft report has some of that in it, and really, I think, is presented very well. It's got some very good content in there, I'm sure, reflecting inputs from other members, including the chair. So it's looking very good. I had 4 items that I would raise, and I'm just wondering, Paul, this is really more procedural. What's the best way to raise them? There's one perhaps that I could raise for discussion now. I'm wondering whether a better approach might be for me to, and these are all appearing in the prior outline that you've seen, but taking the few points that I think I would like to include in the report from the prior outline that haven't made it into this draft. Procedurally, would the best way to do that be for me to put that into the draft and have it available for the next meeting when we could see those suggested inputs and obviously discuss them and vote on them? I'm just thinking procedurally how to go about doing that.
If it's just 4 points, can he just tell them what they
Yeah,
have?
you can tell them.
Yeah,
I can tell you what, absolutely I can, yeah.
Yeah,
And the first one, perhaps for discussion, I noticed that there was an indication of how often we'd meet next year. And I think that is probably something that I'd certainly like us to discuss and consider. Are we going to move to quarterly meetings, which is what the report suggests, or which certainly I'd be interested in meeting more frequently than that, at least at the front half of the year, when we're still, I think, sort of feeling out what our role is going to be in a number of areas. So that's the first question, and that's the one I mentioned for discussion. Number 2 was in the role section, which is on page 3 of this report. I note in there that while the MPAA provision with respect to the role of the PAB is in there, the COMAR section on role is not in there. And the COMAR section is the one which indicates that the PAB's primary role is to work to ensure public accountability and transparency over the powers exercised by law enforcement agencies. So I would suggest the inclusion in that page 3 listing of our duties, of the regulatory duties that Maryland law is now imposing on us as well. So to include the COMAR section on our roll there. So that's item number 2. Item number 3 is a section that I'd suggested for consideration and would like to carry in for a discussion. And that was a section which was, what are the tools the PAB needs for success? Obviously that was the caption, but there was some substantial language in there on some of the items that I think, and certainly would propose for discussion, that we would identify to the county council as helpful and necessary for us to be successful. There's a section on that. Well, actually, I said 4 items. There's only 3. That's it. Yeah.
And what was the last one you just said? Could you repeat it one more time?
Yeah. There are a number of items included in the outline under a section which was captioned, "What does the PAB need for success?" Obviously, that's a caption, but it raises sort of for discussion or as a section there, items that are important for us going forward to fulfill our role, our accountability role. So that was a section that was in the outline. It was sent to you all previously by me, and certainly wanted to have a discussion about carrying that into the report.
Hold
Some
on a
of the things
second.
he's bringing up, we've already voted on, like the quarterly meetings thing, and then
Right, that was in the.
we've also voted, dealing with the,
COMAR section?
yes,
So that's already been settled, that's settled?
I don't recall that vote. I'm sorry.
That was with
you
respect to the.
presented the amendment that you wanted, and it wasn't second, so it wasn't approved, if my memory is correct.
Are we talking about 2 different things
No,
though? I think so.
So
I
the
don't-
first
He's
thing
talking
that he
about
was
quarterly
saying,
meetings,
right,
we already talked.
Oh, no, not that. No, I agree with that one, but about the COMAR section, that he was referring to.
it's kind
Standard procedures,
That
how
was,
we went.
that was in the rules of procedure. That's, so you had that discussion within and with respect to how you wanted to define the role of the PAB and the rules of procedure. And then there was also a discussion and voting on the meetings or the frequency of meetings of the board. So I think that's what he's referring to. So to the extent you want to take that language and insert it into the report, you all were free to do that. But it's already there. We put it in the final draft.
So did you hear that, Jim?
So he wants to mirror.
You put in the final draft of the report or the?
No, the rules of procedure.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you've lost me a little bit. This was not a discussion. I don't think this was a discussion about the rules of procedure. This was a discussion about the report.
So did you hear what Sega was saying? She said because.
Go ahead.
Because we discussed it and we came to a resolution for the rules of procedure, she said it would be fine if we took that same language that you're requesting and mirror it over here.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
So that would be
super.
supporting what you asked for,
Great. Thank you.
okay? You're welcome. With respect to the frequency of meetings though, I think we already agreed that we meet quarterly, but we meet more frequently if we have to. Can you refer me to exactly where in the report that you are referencing the quarterly meetings now?
Yeah, absolutely. And perhaps it's as simple as saying or more frequently as necessary, but let me pull that up. Yeah. I got this last night, so I'm not that familiar with it yet, but let me just pull it up.
And as I was reading the executive summary, John, I saw an instance of lowercase board.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm in it now.
okay, the executive summary part. But I'm sorry, Jim, you said you're looking to see exactly where you were referring to?
Yeah, I'll find it here in a moment.
Okay, thank you.
If you look at the bottom of page 3 where it says hold quarterly meetings, I think, is that what he's talking about?
No,
Yes.
that would be,
No,
is that it?
That's what he's talking about right there.
Hold the
It,
quarterly?
I found it actually, and it is in the cover letter from Chair Huth.
we can't really address that because Nellie has not put her edits on it.
Right.
And that's why I
think we
said
can
that.
address it.
Yeah, I don't think that's really the issue. I think we really kind of need to hear him out relative to this.
Okay.
So, Jim, can you just direct me to exactly which
Yeah,
paragraph, what line are
so
you referring to?
It's
Oh,
the
in the new year, we will meet quarterly? Is
Yeah,
that what you're talking about?
Yes, indeed. It's the last
Your
sentence on
representation?
Nellie's
Hold on,
letter.
hold on. I can't hear what he's saying. What he's saying? Say it again.
I was just trying to identify where that provision is. It's the last sentence in the chair's cover letter, right at the front of the document.
Okay. And I mean, personally, I agree that not necessarily, we may not want to say quarterly anyway, because we tend to meet more frequently than that. I think the whole point of this line, and I'm assuming you drafted it, right? Was just to invite him to the meetings, right? So when we meet, we will be extending an invitation for him to be present. So I think his request is perfectly valid in that respect.
Okay.
So it's more so, don't just pigeonhole us to meeting quarterly, because we went far frequently than
But we're
that.
we're not gonna do meet every month either.
Nobody said that either.
Okay.
We're not
We have
saying,
been
we're
so
not
far.
saying meet monthly right here. It's just, in that particular line, I think we don't really have to have a time reference.
It's.
Because,
Yeah, but there was a caveat to that, which is, or when, when needed, as the, right.
Right, I
That's what
was,
we talked about.
but in that line, I don't think that that's necessary is what I'm saying.
In the cover letter.
Well,
It's just for the cover
we can
letter.
agree to disagree.
It's just for the cover letter.
Like, just getting my.
I
point out there,
understand. I understand. Yes, I do.
okay.
I highlighted it so that for the chair, I'm just highlighting these things and I added from the bullets for the COMAR would reflect out of the rules of procedure and I put a note in the highlight for Kiana, so that's Kiana, it's in the document I'm highlighting.
Okay, thank you.
And a grammar up on, under the second paragraph. I think there are two adjectives there, of and for. Are you looking for that kind of detail or just facts and?
This is just a wrap.
Yeah, this is a draft, so.
Okay.
I mean,
We will have some,
yeah,
yeah,
we
We'll
will
have
have somebody.
we'll have our communications right.
Just so the board is aware, the final language approved by the board in the rules of procedure is the board shall meet at least quarterly.
Right,
That's fine.
and that sounds fine,
Yeah.
because that tells us if we have to meet more,
Yeah.
we can always reschedule. It doesn't pigeonhole us into only quarterly meetings. So I think that's good, at least quarterly, and if needed more,
So she could just add in the new year will meet at least quarterly.
at least quarterly. That sounds good.
Agreed.
And
Okay,
then,
so what was your fourth thing?
There's only three.
There's only three.
what about the third one, the third
He
section?
said include what does the PAB need for success.
I was looking, trying to find the document that he sent.
Yeah, I don't have.
You said you sent the document to us directly, or
I
did
sent it,
you sent it to us?
at the last meeting, which was October the 18th.
Okay,
About his draft,
Yes,
I have a copy of it.
thank you. I think yeah, I need to. I just wanted to see what that section.
I highlighted some things, ignore that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I wonder if, are we moving to my third point? Annette, are you looking at it now?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I wanted to give some background on that at the appropriate time. I think it's, worth at least an introductory discussion as you read it or after you've read it,
I don't remember.
or an introduction from me. Yeah.
Move your copy of it. I think I have a copy.
Yeah.
I don't remember. I don't remember the thing.
And just to be clear, just so I'm clear, are you referring to section C or section B? What does the PAB need for success, or defining the future role? What does success look like?
Jim?
He's looking.
No, it is the former. It is the section, what does the PAB need for success? And the reason for that, Anedia, is that the defining the future role of the PAB is in the report, subject to the COMAR discussion. So that was well done and well included, I think, already. So it's the section I'm raising again for inclusion is the what does the PAB need for success, that section.
We're not there yet.
I can print it.
That's,
It's
that's an evaluation or an assessment that we make, once actions are taken, once we, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Follow through on regulations, complaints. I mean, how do you do that?
With not having, you have it? No?
Oh, you want to see it?
I'm gonna print it.
Okay, guys, without having that, I really can't make any comments on it. You go ahead and read it first. that you want to.
Well, and Paul, perhaps I could just provide the introductory comment, which I think will be helpful as you review it.
Okay.
There is an underlying assumption in this language that we've had the discussion on the role of the PAB. And Brenda, I'm not disagreeing with you at all when I think I heard your comment there. We haven't had that discussion yet, right? We haven't had a good, substantial discussion as a board, and there'll be differences of opinion, of course, with all of our diverse perspectives. But we haven't had a discussion on what we believe the role, what the role is and what we need in particular for the success of that role. So it's here. I won't call it a placeholder, but I think it's important that we understand what the role of the PAB is in our view, and then what we need and what we should be telling the county council who'll get a copy of this report, what we need for success. And you'll see there that D, of course, is a legislative agenda that I'm suggesting for our success, which would include access to information, a statutory right for access to information, which I think is important for us to be successful going forward. Now, my introductory comment there is we need to have that discussion, I think, and the language assumes that we've had that discussion, and obviously the language would be adjusted to the outcome of our discussion if and when we have it.
I mean, I can read it because I have it right here.
I'm gonna print,
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna send for, but you can talk about, go ahead and talk about it. I'm sending.
Okay, so in his, in his subsection B, he puts, the PAB requires, part A, requires continuing and timely access to the LEA's data and records relevant to accountability and transparency. The PAB has received no response to date from PAB member requests for data from the LEAs. The PAB's request to receive information and copies related to complaints of misconduct filed directly with LEAs remains pending. B, PAB requires the ability to inspect body-worn camera recordings relating to critical incidents. Under that, he has LEA leadership is on record as being in opposition to this. C says PAB should establish with the LEAs a set of key metrics for tracking accountability and transparency. And D says the county council should include in its proposed ACC trial board PAB legislation enhancements for the PAB which address the above requirements. This should include provisions which, 1, grant PAB access to LEA data and records related to police misconduct, grant PAB access to body-worn camera recordings related to critical incidents. And 3, enable the PAB to define and communicate its requirements for qualifications, capabilities of ACC members to be appointed by the PAB.
I'm sorry, Keanu, you weren't reading a current version of that, but it's close.
Well, that's the only version we have, so, let's send out a
exactly.
newer one.
Exactly.
Okay,
It's not the current version, Paul, is all I'm saying.
what's different in the version from the one she read to the current version that you have?
The section D4, sub C, now would say in the current document, but clearly not one that's been distributed, authorize the PAB to be able to limit ACC membership eligibility for its ACC member appointments.
I don't think that's going to pass at all. I thought we had talked about this already, and this has already been resolved in earlier meetings. And I don't believe that the legislature, when they wrote the PAB laws, that they intended for the PAB to be more than it is, and that's why they have the ACC to supplement some of the things you're asking for. The ACC handles, and what they're supposed to do, if I'm correct me mistake if I'm wrong, that they're supposed to bring their findings to us, and we're not supposed to reinvestigate what they've already investigated. So what I believe, what they have here is that I know what you're requesting, and I understand why you're requesting it, but I believe that's part of the ACC's job to handle those situations and then bring us their findings.
I will also say, with regards to Mr. Bornley's request that the law enforcement agencies provide certain data and body-worn camera footage and things of that nature, There's a timing issue with that. It's such, there are laws that apply to such requests that could be made, even whether it's
One piece.
Yeah. All right, we're listening. Thank you. Anybody else? That's flexible.
Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
no, you guys were, I was waiting until you guys. No. It was me talking, it wasn't. you. So, everybody else-
I'm sorry.
I'm just listening.
Go ahead.
I'll start again. So this portion of the report says, it talks about continuing and timely access to law enforcement data and records. Well, access to data and records of any agency, whether it's the police department or the Department of Human Resources or whatever it is subject to state law and even local law, particularly the Public Information Act. So, whether it's an individual making the request for data or even a public body requesting that data from a public agency such as law enforcement agencies, the law enforcement agencies are still bound as the custodian of records by those statutory provisions. So it's not that the PAB would never be entitled to that data, but there's a question of timing. For example, if there is some critical incident, that's how it's framed here, which is captured on body-worn camera, and that incident is under investigation by the LEA or hasn't went to the ACC or child, well, if it's under investigation, hasn't went to the ACC, the board or any other individual who makes a request for that data would not be entitled to it because there are exceptions to ongoing investigations and data related to that. It's recognized under the PIA that they're not going to give up data that pertains to an ongoing investigation because it may compromise the investigation. So there are state and local laws that you have to keep in mind when you're requesting the data. It's not that the data would be denied to the board or even any individual, but there are timing issues. So it's important to consider those issues as well. And maybe if this is going to be included in the report, it should be caveated in some way, like subject to existing law or subject to statute, PAB should be entitled to data.
Can I?
Yes, go ahead.
Sure, that makes perfectly good sense. I think my concern is us making an assumption that we know what success looks like. And so I know, when we're trying to collect information and determine what works and what doesn't work, usually there's a model to follow, or, there's some pre-existing organization that kind of has been chosen as the model organization or the model group or the model board. And I'm not sure that we can I'm not sure we can say what success looks like because we haven't had it yet. It's new. So
Yeah.
maybe some of the provisions that are stated here are good ideas, but I hesitate to want to put something in a report that we can't back up.
Brenda, I would agree with that, and I'm not wed to the caption at all. In fact, I think you're making an excellent point. We shouldn't be trying to define success. I'd perhaps change that to what do we need
Let me just say this.
without the full success. Yeah.
Let me say this. On our report, since it's our very first report, can we look at it as a living document? Can it be changed next year based on our learning of a different situation that we can add to the document to make it a better or more general report? Because this is our first report. We've had nothing to report at this moment that we can report. We're a new organization developing the reports. So can the report, once we put it down, it's not set in stone. So I think we can adjust it as we go along. And for the next year, we'll be able to add some more of these caveats that we'd like to see in the report. Because we're on a time constraint, maybe it's best that we go with what we have for now and look at improving it for the next year. That's just a thought I'm thinking.
I actually understand what you're saying, and I agree with that because this captures, the report actually just captures what we've done,
Right.
not what we
Intend to do.
exactly. So every report, while this report will be for this year, the next report will encapsulate or include all the things that we've done in 2023, 2024, and so on and so forth. And we continue to build on those successes, or we build on what it is that we are obligated to fulfill under our position. So I would think that in this instance, I think less is more. This is the first one.
I
You
agree.
guys
Say
could title
something
it
that-
like inaugural report, and you could,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
can acknowledge in your actual report when,
Yes.
when the board was established.
Right.
What the tremendous tasks that you guys have had to complete in a very short amount of time.
Tremendous, yeah.
Yeah, but, you could
Right.
certainly
And,
acknowledge that.
and my thought is because, like you said, all of this is new and we're establishing new grounds and we're laying new pavement. So of course, there are going to be things that we leave out, that we make mistakes with, that we have to improve on the next year. So we can't really encapsulate everything at once, because it will be confusing. And then next year we'll be trying to change it and we're trying to catch what we caught last year and we may screw ourselves up. So if we keep it basic to what we know, what we have now, I think, and this is me thinking out loud, that this will give us an avenue to improve on. It gives us a foundation to build upon, and then we can move forward. Yes, sir.
The only thing I would add is that this report will reflect on what we're doing this year.
Right.
We don't have to go back next year and change anything in this report that we submit for 2022.
Right.
We would just identify issues that we have encountered in 2023 and address those issues in that report. So it'd be two separate
That's what I'm
reports.
saying,
Excellent.
yeah.
That's excellent. We're all talking, we're all
Saying
speaking the
the
same
same
thing. Mr. Morales, you said you want to say something.
I do agree that with this particular report, because it's our first report, less will probably be more in terms of what we want to say. The one thing that I don't want to lose of what Jim is saying is that we have not talked as a board as to what we think this board is about. What is it that we're going to be doing next year? I missed the first meeting, so I thought that that's when that conversation was had. I'm understanding that conversation was never had.
Right.
So part of my question is, we're pushing to do all these other things that we need to do,
Right.
but as a group, we haven't come to a consensus as to what we believe this group is supposed to do. So in terms of that, I fully agree with Jim in terms of having that conversation. And even if it's maybe not on this report, it may or may not be on this report. Because I think this report probably kind of puts forth what the idea of the organization was. We're coming together to try to figure that out. We're putting it together, but I think we don't need to lose that. Because you said, we're not looking forward in terms of what we did or what we're going to do next year. But this report does talk about, this is what we're going to do in 2023, or it alludes to that. So it is already forward thinking. So for us to say that we're not looking at that, that's not actual. Well, again, I'm just saying from what I'm hearing.
Right.
So less is still more.
Okay.
I'd like to have that conversation. I hope that that's not lost. But we are looking at what it is that we're going to be doing in the future. No, we may not know what success looks like because we haven't achieved that with this board. I know what success looks like in my mind in terms of what I want to accomplish. And if we could accomplish part of whatever we came in to do,
Right.
I think that's success. But we need some tools to be able to be successful.
Right.
So I don't think we can just say, no, we don't know what that look. I just don't think that. So
Okay.
those are my two.
No, that's good. That's good. You had something else you want to say, Brenda? Did you?
No, I was just agreeing with basically what he was saying. I get it. I get what you're saying, but we're not there yet. We just we need those conversations.
And I understand what you're saying too, because we all want to know, you go to a job, you know what your job is, you know what you're supposed to do, you know what your responsibilities are, and you move along. We are developing our job here and developing our responsibilities and trying to move in that direction. We all have an idea of what we think we're supposed to do, but we want to know what we're supposed to do. Am I reading everybody right like that? Is that what everybody's pretty much thinking? Jim, is that what you're thinking too?
Yes, Paul, I do agree with that. And I wanted to pick up on Ricardo's comments, and they're much appreciated, and I'm very aligned with them. And just two points very quickly on this. The statutory role that we've got is that when a law enforcement agency exercises its police powers, it is our job, quotes, to ensure police accountability and transparency, close quotes. We have currently no tools in that situation to ensure police accountability and transparency. The only tool we've got in terms of accessing data of a law enforcement agency to be able to do that job is the Maryland Public Information Act, which, as Sega notes, is subject to all sorts of constraints, not only timing, but discretion of the law enforcement agencies as to whether to provide us that information or not. Their decision, not ours. I believe that we should be more powerful than that in our county in order to be able to fulfill our statutory responsibilities to ensure police accountability and transparency. We can't do that sitting in the dark like we are right now. We have access to no data relating to law enforcement. So the report does, in fact, there's a section in the report that that indicates that we should be making recommendations for improving police accountability. And my language is one such recommendation. I would like to go back to the county council and say, give us the tools, give us the ability to appropriately request data from law enforcement agencies. That was one of the amendments to the bill that went through for Police Accountability Board. It got 2 out of 5 votes the last time around. We've had an election, and I believe it's appropriate with the new Police Accountability Board to be requesting powers to access data as necessary to fulfill our role. We need county legislation, I think.
Yes,
Yeah, I guess.
Sega.
So I don't, I want to make sure that the board understands you guys absolutely have the power to access data. The only thing I was referring to is new ongoing investigations. Those are subject to some limitations. But, I just really got involved with doing police stuff when I began representing the board. But my understanding is there are very detailed data reports from the police department that they keep on an ongoing basis. And there's nothing that would preclude this board from getting that. And you could do that through a PIA. There's already mechanisms in place for this board to obtain the data that you all are interested in obtaining from the police department. And perhaps I could give you guys the legal advice in order to draft the PIA request that you want to do with the police department or whatever, but there are mechanisms in place for you all to request whatever data you want.
So I did,
Go ahead.
I did include the fact that we will be getting data from them about their ongoing complaints that they have from this year.
But
I literally just got it probably like an hour before I got here. So it's not going to be included in that because I printed this stuff out before. So I will send out the thing once we put it in here. And then if that can address the conversation, it can. If not, then
Yes.
Sega
Okay.
is here for that.
Brenda?
Yeah, so, this is all very helpful discussion. I think we need to keep what we're doing in perspective. This annual report is just a statement or summary of the activities and the actions that have happened since August till current, to present. So we can only report out on what we've done. We can also, as Jim had pointed out, we can also talk a little bit about what we see coming up and we would like to do in the future. In 2023, we're not doing anything before 2023 at all. We got one meeting in December. And we still have a lot to work out, a lot of details. How do we work together? What are the issues, the discussion, Ricardo, that you wanted to bring up? There are so many things to talk about first that does not go into this annual report. We're still figuring it out. And so I would have a problem with putting anything in a report that obligates us to do something in 2023 when we don't know yet still what we're doing. I mean, we do, but we don't. We've got legislation, we got rules of procedures, but we got to put those two things together.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I
Mhm.
mean, we haven't defined our job description.
Right.
Is what I'm saying.
And I think that's what everybody is pretty much saying, the same thing, that our job description hasn't really been finally defined on. And I know Jim wants to have more power in order to get information from the police departments. And I understand that the legislation gave us only so much power that we have. We have to be united together to make, through our chairperson, and submit requests that we may want, if we want something, that we need to be able to go through our chair so that the police department, when we get the information, is not getting it from 15 different directions. So our chairperson should be our person, and she's not here, so I'm not going to speak on her behalf, but
That's a good point.
the chairperson should be the person who is our spearhead. So if we have anything that we need, we should be able to send it through the chair and, or sit in here and come together and say, okay, we want this, 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 and this, and lay it out to the chair. Everybody vote on it, and then we send it off to the police department to get the information sent back to us. That's my thought on how I think we should be moving ahead with this, because as a united front, we're much stronger than we are as a finger. I hate to give the speech and I give it to Maureen, but it's one of those things that if you come in as a closed hand, you have a stronger position than as a pointed finger. So if we come in and the chair is our point, then we can give her what we think we need to be a successful board and to be a successful police accountability system where we're looking over and studying the data, and that way we can all study it at the same time. Does that make sense to everybody?
Absolutely. Well said.
What do you think, Jim?
Absolutely. As a footnote, and again, I'm sorry to sort of be a bit of a squeaky wheel, but you might recall that we all produced and sent in information requests before the first presentation from the law enforcement agencies. I included a set of requests that were basically, down this point, which is we don't currently know what data is available. So the request was along the lines of, tell us what reports you currently have with respect to your engagements with the public. And to date, sadly, no response to date from the police department. So Paul, in full agreement with you, I think that if a board, any one of us has a desire for information going forward, we should bring it in and have it voted on by.
Let me hold you up really quick right there. When I said to request a police department, I said not for one individual, but for the chair to do the request, that we send it to the chair and that the chair would request it, not individually. And I don't know anything that you may have sent out or not. I don't know anything about that. So
no, it was sent out by the PAB in August. I'm sorry.
All right, stand by. Michelle has something.
Yep, I'm not talking about individual.
When we asked the law enforcement agencies to come and present, we asked the board members. Yeah, the chair asked you guys if there were questions you wanted them to prepare for.
Oh.
And so we provided some questions had been received, and we provided those to the LEAs to present as part of their report, not to provide information, but as part of their report. And there were some questions that Mr. Gormley had that they addressed or didn't address in their presentation. I assume they addressed some of that information in there, like how they do their CLIA standards, how they do their processing.
Mm-hmm.
And that was for them to anticipate or be prepared for their report that they gave to you when they came out. Not as a document fact finding, because it wasn't coming from the board as a request for information. It was preparing the LEAs for what the presentation they were giving you. So if the board has specific questions that they want as a board to ask the LEAs to provide, as Ms. Gerber said, the board can vote on that and submit that to the LEAs.
Okay.
But they're not holding back any information from
And I think,
anybody.
to maybe give additional context to it, we asked the LEA to provide overviews of their operations, to provide information on body-worn cameras, and we only had a 2-hour time period. And if some of you can remember from that meeting, we almost used the whole time period for the two organizations to provide all that time.
Right.
So the board, it was always thought that the board could come back and have different topics, to be respectful to to go back to what Mr. Glenn was asking. If that is a topic that the board wants to continue to go down, then they will be willing to bring that information, but they did get the email, but it was also after this context of saying, present on your structural organization, provide information on body-worn cameras, and talk about investigations, which they provided, and at that same time, copies of policies were also provided as part of that to the PAB. So I just want to make sure that is also clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I think we've covered that pretty intensely right now.
This is Arnetta. I mean, I hear what you say that we've covered it pretty intensely. I don't see a resolution though, right?
Right.
So, I'm in agreement with Jim on this one. I see what he's asking for, and I think, for me at least, it cuts many different ways. I agree with Mr. Morales that we need to get some clarity around, we need to make sure we have a shared understanding of what it is that we're doing, and we need to create a path as to how we're going to do it, which is what I hear Jim asking for. It's almost as if, it is the vision for the board. So part of me, I know we only have the one meeting scheduled for December. So I guess my one thing about including it in the report, Jim, my concern is that we don't have enough. Like in my mind, it's like now you have my wheels turning about the need for information. And I'm not sure if we have I don't feel like we have the information we need to include it necessarily in the report to be able to say what we need. But I do think that there is a need to gather data and information. So, based on some of this, like what Jim is asking for in terms of the data and the records relevant to accountability and transparency, it's what is that information? To know what information the police department tracks. So I don't know if we can have access to their data. I'm assuming they have data scientists or whatever, data managers who can help us to understand what information they capture, like what kind of reports they already generate, so that then we will be able to speak intelligently about what it is, the type of information we want to request. Because right now I feel like we're shooting in the dark, and just by making the global statements instead of being able to pinpoint exactly what information we need so that we can ensure that we are meeting our mandate that as Jim just stated.
And I
It
understand,
sounds like she summarized everything we just said. That's exactly correct. But wouldn't that be something we have to do? We can't put something in a report we haven't done yet, right? As far as I know, we're still on this annual report. And it's about putting factual information in terms of what we've actually done and what we hope to do, like you said, defining that vision. But we haven't talked about that yet. So if it's just for this report and we've got only one more meeting, what is it that you think that, factually?
I think the reality is that, like you said, we're saying the same thing.
Yeah.
But what I'm not saying is that doesn't go in this report. We
Oh,
still
okay.
have, we still
Great.
have to the end of the year.
Absolutely, yes.
When this report is due to be submitted. And that's why I said, even though we only have one meeting scheduled, right? To me, it would behoove us to walk into 2023 without the board having a clear idea, a shared idea. It doesn't have to be the data part of it because we are hitting the end of the year. But I do think that we need to walk into 2023 having a shared understanding as a board
okay,
as to what it is we are doing and how we're going to accomplish the things that.
let me lay it out.
Okay.
Okay.
Couldn't we just summarize what you just said as an objective
For our next
twenty
meeting,
twenty-three as part of our report for this year?
I was gonna suggest that.
Decide what data.
This actually summarized, it says to meet, provide input and recommendations to the county and law enforcement, and also to review statistics and outcomes of officer complaints, evaluate accountability measures with law enforcement.
Right,
That is, I think it's,
She included more about,
but we can add some more language
Right.
that kind of captures that, but that was when,
right,
that's what we tried to capture in your 2023, is that you need to meet and actually get a presentation from law enforcement
right. And-
about this.
and-
Was that would be more?
I think-
Meyer?
That's one component.
You can tell me if I'm wrong. I think what they want, is more statistical data on, how did they stop? What did they stop? What did they do? How many stops? This type of information that I believe everybody's asking for, to go to the police department and say, okay, give us a breakdown on what, this month you stopped this many cars, you did this many arrests, you did that many things. Is that what you guys are trying to get, to put in your stats or your data? Is that what you're looking for? I'm not sure. That's why I'm asking.
Probably.
I'm not saying that.
If I could just say that I'm one step above that, and it's something, Anedia, that you mentioned, which is I don't know what's available at this point. So I think for me, the earlier question would be, tell us what reports you have already in this area, and then we can look. I would much prefer to tap into existing reports than to have them go and break down on a request basis new data. That I'm. We'll all be surprised if those reports don't exist already. So that's it.
Okay.
Conversation.
They do already.
With the
Right.
law enforcement agency on existing reports and information that's available on police statistics, that would.
Right, but what I would say is this, and because we're getting late, we're all pretty much saying the same thing, just we're coming at it from different angles. When the chair gets back, maybe we can have the chair send a request to the police department with exactly what we need, or what reports we're looking for, or what data we're looking for in order to generate. I don't think it'll be enough time to put it in this report for this year. I don't think we have the time for that now. But looking forward to 2023, it can be something that we can generate. We can even request it on a quarterly basis. That way we would know by the end of the year what we were looking at the trends. We can adjust and see if the trends are up or down. We can look at if the police department is moving in one direction or another direction. And I think we would be able to adjust on the go based on what we have. And then we can make our recommendations. Everything would fit right in at the end of the year if we do it on a quarterly basis, requesting the data that you guys are requesting. Does that make sense? To everybody? Because what I'm thinking is we have nothing to go on right now. We're getting to the end of the year. We're in the 11th hour and we can only go with what we have. And at the end, when the chair is back, we can send to the chair and say, listen, this is what we'd like to see. We'd like to see the reports from the last quarter on the statistics on whatever you guys want. I know what I think I know what you want, but I'm just not going to go there right now. But whatever you want on that statistics, and have both the sheriff's department and the police department give you their stats based on what they have, because they do keep stats. They know exactly how many arrests they made. They know how many people they stopped. They know how many people they had to deal with. They know how many people that they had to handcuff. I mean, they know all of these things. If that's the things you're looking for as a police accountability board, you're showing transparency, because that's something you can get from them. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes.
Having been there years ago, we were required to keep all that information, have it available on a website to the public. It was also presented to different community groups when they asked for it. So because of accreditation, that all that stuff should be available. It's unfortunate it wasn't sent to us when they were here. But all that stuff is supposed to be available for the public for their review.
Okay. Are we good for tonight?
Can I just ask for the report, not to belabor this, but on page 7, I think Michelle had offered a little bit of language to expand that a little bit, but is there anything
For future
that you would
action.
like, would you like to expand that language at all for future actions in terms of, we thought that captured what you were looking for, that gets to those reports, that gets to those statistics, but if you want to, I know Ms. Dwyer had a very nice statement earlier, maybe that.
I was trying to capture it to say, like, is that a presentation? Is it a conversation with law enforcement where you're able to have, because I think that some of the requests that Mr. Gormley's asked is sort of an iterative process. There needs to be a conversation. We need to be able to, you all need to be able to talk about it. So is that to have this conversation with law enforcement where they're presenting what they have, you can also ask questions because you're able to review that. Is that something that you're interested in, is to have a conversation about these information or have a presentation from them on that?
From my perspective?
Yeah, from them.
Yeah, and I'm just solely from my perspective. From my perspective, yes. Like when, Paul, when you were talking about having the chair to request certain things, that's not the direction I'm headed in. That's not it. I'm looking at developing a relationship with the police department such that they share with us the information in terms of the information and data they collect. And once we know everything they collect, then we as a board can collectively decide, okay, this report, we want to make sure that we get that quarterly or whatever, right? Or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But first we need to know what's available.
Right.
As opposed to us telling them what we want. No, I want an inventory of all the data they track.
Okay.
And then we work it from that
This is
perspective.
helpful because I think the thing about it is when we're trying to, when Kiana's trying to put together, presentations for you, I think that's part of this process is so that staff can understand what you're looking for. So then when the law enforcement comes, they come prepared. I think that the information that Mr. Gormley was asking, had some of those things, but I think in some ways it also needed a little bit more conversation.
Mhm.
Because I think when I was looking at it as a law enforcement agency, I can throw, like Mr. Charity's saying, we can give you mountains and mountains of reports, or we could give you policies, but I think it's more of a conversation on like, what are we doing, what do we have? And I think that that's a different conversation than that first presentation that we made, because you have to have all those presentations, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So you have to be able to have those conversations, and that's what this board is for, is an interface with the police department, an interface with law enforcement and the sheriff's office to try to understand what's going on. So I think that's not, I don't think there's a hesitancy from us to do this. I just want to make sure I'm capturing it correctly.
So I just want to make sure I understand, you don't think that the chair should be the one to send the information, that each individual should send request the information?
No, that's not
No.
about each
Oh.
individual.
I'm sorry, I kind of missed, because you said you weren't when I was talking about the chair, so I'm kind of lost there.
Because you
Sorry.
said we should come back, we can ask for her to do this. That's not what we asking for.
For us, for the report, we want to make sure that you have kind of what this future is that you're
Overall
looking for and what that looks like in 2023. So
Right.
having these interactive processes, getting an inventory of information, we can add that to the report.
We can add that to the report, and then we can also add that into the conversations so that when we're talking to the police department, we can be ready for that in 2023, but so they can be ready to have that conversation with the board. I
And-
think that's what's helpful to understand,
And part of your regular quarterly meetings or more.
or more.
It is envisioned that you're meeting with law enforcement regularly and having these kind of dialogues. You guys have had to go through a lot of process stuff first now, which is, getting everything ready, getting the rules and procedures, getting your ACC, getting all that stood up. So, but your mission is to regularly meet with law enforcement and have these kind of conversations, find out what's available, find out what you need.
Okay, good.
So,
I just want to make sure I understood.
just one thing, so you were asking, John, about page 7 and the
Yes.
broad description of the future activities. These are the things exactly that we've talked about. And I think that if you add that last one, last bullet, that would be very helpful. But it does cover exactly what we were doing. And, what we set out to do this year. We said, okay, we're going to do the ride-alongs, we're going to do this. So I would rather, like I said, that I'll go back to that less is more. I would rather make broad statements until we specifically map out the who, what, where, when, and how we're going to function as a board. And the accountability, like we use that word, accountability, what does that really mean? We may even have to define that inside, obviously, the regulations and the legislation. So I just wanted to say, I don't have a problem with 7. 7 is good. I like the less is more so that we're not tied to something that we want to change next year. We don't know. In a few weeks.
Okay.
Thanksgiving is in 2 weeks.
Okay. All right, so.
Hey, Paul, I wonder if I could just have the
Yes.
opportunity for
Sure.
I wanted to mention that I am fully in agreement with this approach, as summarized in particular by Anetia. We need an inventory of the reports that are available. Then we need to get together as a board to determine what it is we might want to request as a board, Paul, to fully agree with your point, as a board, on an ongoing and recurring basis to fulfill our role of ensuring accountability. But I wanted to just add one more to those for discussion. When we get to that point, I think collaboratively with the police department, we all, I know what success will look like. We will have demonstrably been able to show improvements in police accountability. Leading to my last point, once we have received the inventory of information, once we've decided what we want to get on a recurring basis, I would like to suggest, as in any organization, that if we want to be able to show improvements in accountability, we as a board And we as a police department and a sheriff's office, which should be a shared goal to improve accountability, that we need metrics, accountability metrics, to establish that collaboratively with the police department. If you don't have metrics, we will not be able to show and will not be able to reliably conclude that we are improving accountability in our county. So for me, and obviously that's in the language that I provided, is to get the information, to understand the information that's available, to get the information, to work collaboratively with the law enforcement agencies to develop and maintain metrics to measure accountability.
Okay, I think we're all
I think
saying
we
the
said
same
that.
thing. I think we're just coming at it from different angles, but I think we're all in the same ballpark. We're just, coming at it from different perspectives and different angles, but we're saying the same thing. I hope we can all agree on that, we're coming at it. So, do we have anything else on this? Mr. Morales, you want to say anything else on this? Mr. Charity? Ms. Brenda? Ms. Wyatt? Jim?
Nothing more, no?
Okay. So, what we'll do is, when the chair comes back, we'll be given a detail on what we talked about and, briefed on, what we're looking at and how we're heading. And, what, we're looking forward to 2023 and our report. I think that's all that's on the agenda.
Can I just, have a better idea of what are the next steps relative to the report, you know, in terms of timing? What is it that you need from us, Kiana, besides the bios from each of us and any comments we have? Is there a certain date by which you'd like those things and? Okay, not a problem.
Good job, good job. Teamwork.
I would say by December the 1st.
12-1?
Yeah.
12-1, you want what by 12-1? What do you need by 12-1?
Any more comments?
How about we do this as well, Kiana? Because we've gotten some input here. We'll start this, we'll send out a new version,
Okay,
by the end of the week. That can be probably actually early next week.
Okay, so,
Holiday, yeah.
But so that you can do a PDF where you can highlight and you can make changes, and you can add comments to it, that way it makes it
Excellent.
clear.
Okay.
And then we'll send a date when those initial comments are due. Maybe then we can reformulate a little bit if there are a first set, and then we can then send it to you before your next meeting. So in the conversation, we can have some substantive conversations in the next meeting. So maybe by then we might have some observations from the chair on her letter and things like that. So what we'll do is if we can give us till next week to get you a draft,
Okay,
then we can send it in PDF, and then we can put some dates and timelines in that email to you.
okay.
That'll give it, so, but again, to kind of go in line with when your next meeting date is, so that you're making more, you know, you're seeing getting to a final draft, so that if everybody can get their bios in sooner than later, we can then get that formatting in there as well. And photos, if you're not using photos, that way we can put all that stuff into this next draft you get. And then we can do little things like tweaks, like change board to board and do all that stuff, the lowercase, uppercase board, and come up with a consistent naming methodology by next week.
Okay,
Thank
thank you. Mhm.
sounds good.
All right.
Outstanding.
The next meeting is December
7th.
7th.
December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day.
Yeah.
Except for ours. Oh, we don't call
Oh,
that,
no,
we don't call that a meeting, right?
Oh, the public hearing.
The
Yeah,
public
that's
hearing.
So you can't, if there are matters that you all want to discuss, and it may be that you come to the public hearing and there isn't, like,
Anybody.
yeah, or there isn't 15 or 20 people, it's just maybe one person or whatever. So you could set an agenda for that hearing. We did put in the notice that you may conduct business at that meeting in addition to having the hearing. So to the extent that you don't have people lined up to comment on your rules of procedure, you could conduct business.
So yes, you could put it probably the draft agenda. So we might have a draft agenda there, so that by the 7th, then you can have another finalized draft of the 2nd, if that makes sense.
So per the code, your reports are not due until December 31st. It says on or before December 31st of each year, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the public hearing is the 30th?
Very good, yes.
30th of November?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you all want to set an
Mhm.
agenda
Yeah.
for that meeting now, that's what you should do, to determine what items you want on that agenda. And then to the extent that you could get to the items on the agenda, you can.
That's a
Okay.
Friday. No.
So Wednesday.
That's a Wednesday.
I guess part of my, again, I will say kind of consternation at this point is the way it has come up several times about not having a shared, understanding of what it is we're doing. And I think that needs to be a priority.
I'm
So
sorry. I missed.
I agree with that, yeah.
that just to us not having a shared understanding of what it is we're doing as a board,
Uh-huh.
that's problematic,
Mm-hmm.
you know, to me.
Do you
So
all want to add that to the next agenda as mission of the board? to
Yeah,
discuss?
I think that's a good idea.
Yes. Sorry, I know I didn't have platform there, but absolutely, I've been suggesting that we have that as an agenda item. I think if we've got time in December to discuss it, we should make time in December to discuss that.
this will be the November
This is
3rd.
November 30th.
November 30, okay, yep, sorry, even better.
Good job.
Hopefully.
I know, right?
Which is,
Just hopefully, I mean, if, if you got 20 people out there wanting to, but I don't think so. I'm but stranger things have happened.
Plan B, Ricardo, would be to carry it to the December 7th meeting, I guess, but hopefully we can get it on November 30.
If you compare it to the December 7th meeting, then you may not have time to make any changes to your report. And that's the only issue that you may want to think
Push
about.
comes to shove, we can push it into January.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Right.
This is a marathon.
Or the December
It's not a sprint.
Or at the Christmas meeting. you can-
Yeah, right, okay. I'll call you from someplace.
so is that what the board is doing, setting agenda items for the next meeting?
I think you are
Sounds
setting.
like
an
that's the
agenda.
only agenda item.
Well, they
The
have that,
mission of the board?
no, the
report.
report.
And then the mission of the board.
And then the mission report.
Just those two items, it sounds like.
That take up the whole night. Okay,
And that's why he was saying it could roll to the December the 7th, because it sounds like it still would be the same two items, no matter what.
So you guys want to approve your agenda for the next meeting then?
we have to know what it is, let's say what it is again.
So mission discussion
Mission of the board,
and
and-
the
and
draft
the
annual
draft.
report.
Mm-hmm.
okay. I move that we approve the agenda items for the next meeting
Oh, and they go with the,
Legislation.
yeah, the
Legislation.
ACC.
and the legislation.
Oh, God,
Well,
we
that would
can't
be
do
the
all that in two.
Well, we might as well put them all three and
Three
then
and
move or whatever.
Okay.
Right, we'll put
Yeah,
mission,
yes, yeah.
mission of
Sorry,
the
I
board
don't
for
wanna speak
last.
for the board. You guys-
That's all right.
Thank
Okay.
you.
The
Thank you
mission of the
so
board.
much.
Hey, John, you're
We
right.
appreciate your help.
Well, you might also have a sense by next meeting whether it would be pre-filed in December or January.
Okay,
So if it's going to be January, then you may be able to defer the legislation following meeting.
When we say legislation, I'm talking about ACC, right?
Right.
Okay.
okay. Didn't they change, aren't they changing that or something? Didn't they put some new legislation out for the ACC?
That's what we're.
That's what you're talking
Yeah.
about, okay.
That was handed out.
Right, that's what I was reading it, but I was thinking, I thought that's what we were gonna talk about the next meeting, but I was like, wow, okay. I'm getting late. All right, do we have anything else?
Those three pieces.
Everything is good. I have nothing else on my
We
sheet.
seconded, somebody
No,
seconded.
we have.
Oh,
I was like, did somebody?
You guys
So,
haven't voted on your agenda for the next meeting.
I thought we did. All right, okay, I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead. Okay. I make a motion that we approve the agenda for the next meeting.
Which will be to discuss, which will be, you have to read the,
Which will be the mission discussion of the board, the draft annual report of the board, and the ACC legislation.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
No, it's-
Voice count?
No,
Oh, oh, sorry, you had a question?
I'm just gonna do a voice.
Oh, she did.
To do a roll call to,
I was gonna say the roll call.
yeah, for the vote.
You want me to do it or?
Doesn't matter to me.
I'm gonna have a roll call. Brenda,
I abstain,
abstaining.
yes.
I approve.
Yes.
Yes.
Jim?
Yes, for me.
Yes for me. Hey. Are we good there?
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to move the board to adjourn for the evening.
Second.
Second.
What time is that 7:37 for
It is.
everybody?
Yeah.
It is 7:37 and 54 seconds. All
Thank
right,
you.
all approved? Thank you, guys.
Good job, Paul.
Huh?
Good job.
Thank you. Y'all tried to beat me up, man. Y'all had me on the road.
Good job, Paul.